order. And for allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're having a comments from the audience today. Saying none, let's go. Are there any corrections to the agenda or the consent calendar?
Yes, we have two changes to the agenda. There will be no grant update of the statutory report. And we are deleting system efficiency and sustainability committee meetings from the future meetings of May 17th.
If there's any other changes, or any other consent for discussion? Very good. And we'll entertain a motion on the consent calendar and take off the consent. I'll move the agenda. Okay. Any discussion?
The motion passes unanimously.
So we're on to 6A, IT strategic plan findings.
Good afternoon, Chris Lane, IT manager. Just wanted to do a quick introduction for our government technology group. Jeff, Francie, and Mark, the core team over there at government technology group. They've spent the past 3 years before they were doing this as CIOs and CTOs and IT managers for government entities that are in their communities all over. So specifically, for cities and special districts. So the district was incredibly fortunate that they did on the project and got the contract. And so with that, I'll pass it to GTG. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Board President and all the board members. First, let me give you a little bit of background on who Government Technology Group is. We are a group of retired CIOs from different agencies, and we each bring something special to the group. We each have our own sort of specialty that we, in our careers, have brought forward. Jeff brings management and oversight and broadband planning. I'm an engineer by education. I'm sort of a hardware guy. And Mark, who's not with us today, but he is the systems and software guy. So the three of us bring something to the table to work on. Or work with, excuse me. So why, let's see if I can get this going. All right, so why strategic planning? Well, it's in the title, really. You want to plan strategically. And each agency would put together a strategic plan as a guide on how to bring forward your goals and your needs and your wants within the agency. Normally there's an agency-wide strategic plan, and then you would have strategic plans pertinent to IT and other areas. So we concentrated on an IT strategic plan refresh. The IT strategic plan that we have brought forward and delivered is aligned with the district goals and the board's goals. And we did interviews of all the various departments and divisions within the organization to get their feedback and help us put together a strategic plan. And this will give IT a roadmap going forward. A strategic plan is a living document that should be refreshed every so often. Sometimes it's 3 years, 5 years. I've even seen plans that last for 10 years. But normally for IT, 5 years is about the longest stretch that you will have. Our scope of work that we were contracted for was to do a refresh of the existing strategic plan. And it included both a security check of your cybersecurity ability and your disaster recovery and your business continuity, which we've included in our report.
We took a look at the existing IT structure. As I spoke, we interviewed all the different divisions and departments to get their feedback on how well IT was doing and what their needs and wants are as it pertains to IT. And the goal was to, of course, improve the strategic direction of how your IT is delivered within the organization. One thing to understand is IT in today's world, IT is getting more and more complex every single day. Those that are in the trenches fighting to keep IT running, the complexity of it is just getting overwhelming at times. So the district is no different from any other organization. You've got a very complex set of technology that you use every day. There are 16 geographical locations that have to be supported, and over time, that's going to grow. It's just a matter of needs and wants of the community and the freshwater and wastewater. And IT supports a number of applications that fulfills the district's business case, and they have to concentrate on that. The district spends a little over 3% of their operating budget on IT. The MISAC organization, the Municipal Information Systems Association of California, did a survey about 10 years ago that it should be around 4.7% of your operating budget should go to IT to help support the organization. The IT supports 466 devices within the organization, and with 4 full-time employees, 1 manager and 3 technical staff. And as you can see from the graph, over the last 10 years, the growth that you've seen within the organization is the number of complexity of items that need to be supported. And I would lean heavily on the complexity of things. It's not just the number of the increased items that have to be supported, it is their complexity too that adds into it. So the issues and the recommendations that we found within our research and delivery of our plan. So the goal was to maximize technology efficiency and effectiveness, to better use of staff resources, to bring in cost savings realized by reduced use and reduction of non-productive personnel hours, made better use of staff time, marketing initiative to have better communications throughout the organization. These were all things that we took into consideration as we put together the plan. Also, cybersecurity, and I'm sure you've all read the news reports and the headlines of people that hack organizations. The average organization is attacked daily 1,000 times. And that is usually fought off with things like firewalls and other security measures. But it is, the why I bring that number up, it's a constant attack that's going on. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when somebody gets through. The only thing you can do is to plan for the worst and hope for the best. Some of the things that we would recommend is multi-factor authentication. That's really, everyone understands it, even though they may not understand the term. But for example, your ATM card is a multi-factor authentication system. You submit your card to the machine, and then it asks you for a PIN. That's 2 factors to identify you. And we're recommending that your systems, a lot of your systems, implement that 2-factor authentication. That alone can foil a number of attacks. Geofencing, fencing off your areas from outside attack, making it impossible to get to it, and facilitate expansion of your mobile computing. Improving and expanding access to online forums. That has
That allows both staff and your ratepayers to use online systems to do business with the district. And we're recommending that there's an expansion in those areas. There's no detail inside the plan. I'm just giving you an overview of it. We're recommending changes in IT and the reporting structure. In an agency as complex as the district, usually your IT management has what we like to call a seat at the table, where with the executive committee, to where technical issues are brought up and discussed at an executive level, and decision making can be made at that time, rather than having it go through several levels before it gets addressed. And we're recommending that the IT manager be elevated to a chief technology officer or chief information officer, and be part of your executive team. Improving staff levels in IT. So we've looked at a number of different other agencies and how their structure is for IT, and the district is understaffed according to industry standards. We looked at several different reports, one of them being the AWWA, and they recommend that an organization the size of the district has 6.5 to 7.5 IT staff, and you currently have 4. We're recommending an increase of 2 staff members, which would bring you to 6, which would bring you better in line with industry standards. This will also help facilitate cross-training and support when people are on vacation, people are sick, things of that nature, which can be stressful. The other issues that we looked at, training, there needs to be more training, business process review across the board, utilization of your enterprise resource program, the Tyler system, New World, improvement in permitting information, better file management and document management, utilize subject matter experts. And what I mean by that is there'll be times when there's a technical issue that you don't have the technical expertise on staff. So we recommend that at that point you bring in subject matter experts to help you resolve that technical issue. Evaluate more cloud services rather than having everything on premises. Use cloud services. But that also falls into broadband and communications. They have to be stable and in place. And evaluate GIS for centralization under IT. GIS is a technical system, and it really should be under IT. So at this point, I'm going to hand you over to Jeff and let him give you a security review.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to be here. That's security officer. Before I get into that, I wanted to say, Chris mentioned that there was multiple attacks today that are hitting pretty much every business out there and every entity. And a couple examples, recent examples I can tell you. City of Oakland got hit, and also the city of Modesto. There's 2 different results that came from that. The city of Modesto planned strategically to prepare for a security attack. Oakland did not. And so City of Modesto was up and running, believe it or not, even though the newspapers swearing, within 3 weeks, where City of Oakland is still recovering. And the reason behind that is that the City of Modesto strategically planned for that purpose. So they had their insurance agent in, the FBI, and their vendor that helped out with the security system come in and speak with their executive team on board, and they sat down at the round table and tabletop to plan for that. The person who was in charge of that, the attorney that led that and led the ransomware negotiations, will be speaking in Tahoe in about 6 weeks. So Chris Skelly will be attending that meeting and listening to that. I highly recommend that you take advantage of anything that comes from that, because being recovering in 3 weeks versus taking months and having a hit is huge. And so that was, I just want to share that with you. That's coming soon. That's something I can suggest. So the security overview, there was perimeter test, which means someone trying to tap on the outside, kind of the internet, to try to penetrate the system or your systems. Internal test, that one could be someone phishing, getting on phishing, that one clicking when you get your information, or finding a sticky note possibly hanging underneath the desk and getting their passwords. And that gets that's the internal. So now they're inside your network and trying to detect that. There was a wireless penetration test and also data identification and observation. Why we don't say test there is that SCADA systems are very sensitive, and you don't want to send code going over the network because you can leave out your operations. So there we recommend that you just identify what the firmware packages, make sure you get packages or patches in place. So the summary findings, I'm going over this very high level, and we'd be happy to stay afterwards if you want to do a private session. But due to the confidentiality of the security issues, I want to go into great detail of those. So the district overall had little or no tax service. It was a very positive, very high average, above average rating for on that area of your district. Overall, the district did very well for not having a security audit in a while. The MISAC group, which is the Municipal Information System Association of California, recommends having one every 2 years as best practice. So that's a third-party person coming from the outside and making sure the systems are in place. The district is doing a great job. They have some software in place that actually tests quarterly and on an annual basis. That this would double check that, and they've actually found a few things that they did, so that's why you do this. So regular testing and remediation will result in an above average rating on the So key security recommendations include regular vulnerability assessments. We recommend trying to stay on top of it every 2 years and continue to use your internal software to do that, which is the active monitoring system. And we recommend funding the projects that are identified in security. And you'll see that what we recommended, there were some that were higher priority, but those are at the beginning of our plan, and those that weren't lower, medium, and lower priority, we push further out. So looking forward, working with all the different departments and the interviews that we have, we identified about 70 different projects that were there. Out of that, the IT department took those, they prioritized those, and they ran them by the IT steering committee, which is a great process. You guys are letting me have a good governance process in place, which is fantastic. How it was prioritized was taking into account the board's goals, priorities, how many did it meet if you were looking at a project, is the project required to reduce costs to help your operations, number of customers benefits. Does it benefit only one of your customers, or is it your entire customer base, for example? And does it make it, one of the big key things was, does it increase effectiveness or efficiency of operations? So moving forward, we recommend doing an annual update to your plan for in-house staff, so that you don't need outside expertise for that. And we provide information to Chris on how to run that process. And so go through your regular budget process, because you know throughout the year, it's a 5-year plan, it's a strategic plan, it's not an implementation plan. There's going to be new things that come up, and you want to take those into account. And then, like I think Nancy hit it earlier, maybe in 5 years doing another outside launch just to verify that what the goals are of the strategic plan are still in place, and if you find out if there's anything new that should be in the district. With that, I'd like to thank you for your time and ask if you have any questions for us.
I'll start out. I didn't get it. I think you had a slide on cybersecurity, and what I didn't see on there was, what the slide was, it's not a matter of when, it's a matter of I mean, it's not a matter of if, it's when. And so, what I didn't see on there was, what do we do when? And I was expecting kind of a backup isolation and restore rapidly, quicker than 3 weeks. So 3 weeks. For what else? which can be done in a few weeks.
Yeah. The average time for a breach is 6 to 9 months, and that's why they brought in the FBI, the search agent, and the people doing that, because you need to be educated. It's not something you can recover from extremely quickly, and you have to be protected. First, you have to find out how they got in. You have to close that door. You have to see what they actually took. It takes time and a lot of experts. So it's really above and beyond what Chris's team can do. You have to be bringing in outside. The FBI will be involved. We have the insurance people involved. We have attorneys involved. And the people are trying to negotiate with you. They're trying to get ransomware. And we highly recommend, someone don't do that, but you have people negotiating with that. And it's really a sensitive time. And so they try to get it. Now, when I say 3 weeks, some systems were up and running within the next day. But it took 3 weeks to get everything back up and running. Within the city of Oakland, it was months. And they got over lots of different things. Yeah.
So, okay, so there's a data breach where we're stealing information and somebody using it in a nefarious way. You got to track that down and deal with it. That can take time. But I guess I'm talking about when everybody gets a message on their screen, don't mess with the Napster, and you're down. And my old company, what we did was we just had we have a real-time backup system. We just said we're not going to negotiate with anybody. That's going to cut it off and go to the last backup. We'll restore it, and we're not going to pay any ransom or anything like that. And hopefully, we have a system in place that we can do that kind of thing and get everything operating again.
Yeah, I can address that. I was involved, part of my duties in this whole contract was to refresh your backup, restore, disaster recovery plan and your business continuity plan. And I reviewed all of your existing systems that are in place, and to your point, Mr. Peterson, that the IT has a very robust backup and restore system. It is state-of-the-art. Is the best way to put it. Very reliable, and when we talk about an attack, if someone comes in with ransomware and locks your system down, one of the best ways to cure that is exactly what you spoke to. You just wipe everything and restore from your last viable backup. You may lose half a day, but it's better than going on. The way you're set up here, that is definitely a route you can go. So you can feel confident that the systems that are currently in place, not that they can't be improved, that's not what I'm saying, but what you've got in place is very robust and very state-of-the-art.
That's good to hear. Yeah. Good to hear. Yeah, I just didn't understand.
Well, and you'll have to forgive me, I was trying to keep to a timeline, and I had to rush through some things, so I apologize if I wasn't clear on certain points.
Okay.
And Chris, are you going to get into this a little bit more when we go into closed session?
If the board would like.
Okay.
If you're more further into it, if you'd like.
Yeah, well, there's two things. There's a danger of over-automating and having everything elegantly work together and be intertwined and everything like that. It's one disruption and screw up the whole thing. And similarly with billing, if before we didn't have access to people's credit card numbers or their bank information, then the data breach threat wasn't as big because we didn't hold that data. So is it really a great idea to automate billing to the point where we're collecting people's banking information, or should we say somewhat stupid, and just have people send in checks? Maybe that's a more robust security framework. Comment on that.
Well, there are ways to, they're improving the fact that you talk about credit card information and PCI compliance and a number of other things. They're improving the way an organization processes online payments using credit card information, whether it's held or it's just a momentary record, and then it's gone and can't be retrieved. So, and that's something that we recommend you look into, what route you want to go and how. That's an organizational question that would have to be answered.
Thanks for the presentation. I know it was pretty high level. I kind of skimmed through it, kind of very, I'm sure the IT thing was so interesting to me. But, you know, yeah, we're, I think, a pretty sophisticated organization for our size, especially since we're starting to advance a lot more mobile stuff for our employees, a lot more access to the public. I don't think we're ever going to get away from taking credit cards. We just have to kind of evolve and hopefully wall that off in terms of security. But, you know, my interest is more about, maybe it's for Chris, and we can talk about this later too, but just kind of like, how do we digest this kind of bigger picture strategic plan into kind of actionable items? And, you know, I'm kind of curious on how, because there's some pretty big recommendations in here structurally, staffing, and so just kind of curious what the next steps are in terms of what we do with this, where you go. Sure.
So I would say historically, IT has not really been front forward, and Paul can attest to that. And so I'm trying to get in front of you guys more. So as we come forward with funding requests for things like new employees or projects that we're trying to get funding, we're going to be referencing back to this plan going forward. So at least now you guys have some sort of backup to look back on.
And just real quick, you called it a couple weeks ago, we did a budget workshop. And so the first step of moving forward with something as a plan, we did recommend an additional IT staff next year.
So, I mean, you already have kind of a hierarchy of the things within this report that you want to accomplish.
We do, yes. We have a Gantt chart and the IT strategic plan, I think it was attached. So that kind of lists out most of the projects there, but then we also have the security projects. A little bit more off. So we're not publishing too much of that. If you're interested, we can get you a copy.
We have a question for you.
I'm reserved for. Maybe I can just add, just real quickly, that we've looked at a lot of different organizations doing this consulting work, and the district's very fortunate to have a very talented IT department. So,
Okay, let's move on to 7A. Thank you. I'm here today to review the emergency declaration. I think for probably the last time, we'll see, but we have some ongoing work at White Rock out there at Alpine County. Some potential additional work from Tahoe construction company, and ongoing equipment rentals and related costs. So our emergency operations center remains open. We're meeting just about once a week at this point. And for the board, I just thought I'd give you some of the latest information out there. You know, with the warmer spring weather, almost we're getting some more runoff and higher levels in the meadows. And so I just want to give you a quick update on Bellevue, Golden Lakes Lake, the plant, Lucas Gas Pump Station, and then DVR. So at Bellevue, right on the edge of the meadow, we are seeing those waters come up, but the flood protection system that we put in place many weeks ago is still working. So I think we're good to go. We'll just ride this out at this point. And we still have a standby pump and generator out there as a backup. We're concerned about one of those pumps that was making noise. And we have a replacement order, but now is not the time to get in there and replace it. So that'll be kind of hanging in there and running down Falling Lake and Sanford Camp. Really all good news there. I mean, last time we reported that we had Liberty Powers back. We still have our backup generator there just in case. But we also have full speed of communication up there right now. So kind of getting back to normal at Falling Lake as well. And the plant's running great, really, for this whole event. I mean, we had moved water to the ERB and then back.
as we saw those spikes in inflow. But, our flows are still a bit higher, maybe about 1 MDD higher than we would normally expect this time of year. But, the RV is empty, and, I think we're looking at something at Lucas Pass Pump Station. We've got, that's kind of vibration problems and a pump tube, which is a pretty new pump. I think it's less than 2 years old and been in service for just over a year. So, not happy about that, but we've got that offline. We'll take a look at that and work with closer to see what's going on. And, that takes us to DVR. Where was the previous vibration problem? We had pump 1, and that's what we're still having. Yeah, we're still trying to figure that out. So, those are the 1 and 2 of the 2 700s. So we're basically running thousands at this point. And at DVR, generally back to normal. White Rock has completed a lot of repairs out there to the on-farm system, to access roads and ditches. And I think they've done a week, maybe 2 weeks of work out there under the emergency. The reservoir levels, Indian Creek is dropping as planned and so, and Hardy Place is also dropping. We're releasing 15 CFS through the Diamond Ditch. That's just under 10 million gallons per day. Just to give you an idea, and we expect that to continue all year up until pretty much October 1st at that rate. So just trying to get that reservoir down and get ready for the next winter. So that's the latest on the field, really. Paul, you want to give us kind of the latest information from the Nords? Sure. There have been a lot of additional expenditures between 2 weeks ago and now. But as I said last time, we were bumping up against what the authorization was at that time, but we didn't have a quorum to approve an increase, and so that's what we're looking for today, to bump that up from 600 to 900.
Thanks, Paul. Any questions coming from the board?
What do you foresee needing on extra capacity for anything on the horizon?
Well, we still haven't received billings from White Rock as well as some from Hain, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. The dollar authorization for this, does that cover the next 2 agenda items or a couple of contracts that we've used to access contractors for this emergency work?
Yeah, this is within that authorization. Yeah.
Requested board action, 1, pursuant to the public contract code section 22050C, continue the emergency action to respond to the winter storms emergency pursuant to resolution number 3242-23. And item 2, approve expenditures necessary for emergency response not to exceed $900,000.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Call the question, please.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Gentlemen, we're going to 7B, Tahoe Creek Sewer Pipeline Project.
Good afternoon. So, as was just discussed, I'm here to request authorization for a change order for Hain Constructors in support of the emergency response in the amount of $150,000. So this will be a change order to the Tahoe Creek crossing contract, which the work on that project was largely complete. In fact, we've already been to the board to request authorization to file the notice of completion, but we had not yet filed it because we were still working out a few remaining work items on that project. So the timing of the storms allowed us to piggyback on that existing contract with this change work. A very simple contract contracting mechanism for us to proceed with. So, the way this is set up is that, the change item, will be expended on a time and materials basis, so it gives, staff the opportunity then to go ahead and authorize payments, as we receive the requests and review them and approve them, without having to come back to the board for specific approval. So, that's kind of why we are here. I think normally this kind of change order would have gone on consent, but because of the timing of the emergency declaration on the agenda and needing that authorization to go to $900,000 before we asked you to approve this, and here on.
Is this kind of a recipe for this type of thing? Because it seems like it, when I first saw the agenda item, and part of this department, that's all I looked at. I'd say, I got that, the Rack Creek crossing, just costing us a ton of money. And, it seems like when we passed an emergency declaration, like we did, that there should be contracting authority to write a new contract with AIM or White Rock, to cover the emergency work along by itself.
And we could do that, but just writing the contract is pretty time consuming, and then in an emergency, we want to be able to, just move them forward. So having an existing contract in place that we can utilize, it just makes things more efficient for us. You'll hear from Trevor here in a moment, who is utilizing, the Keller, Heavenly, Phase 3 contract, where we had an explicit as-needed services line item. So that's already set up in the original contract to kind of capture these unexpected work items. On this last project, it just wasn't set up that way. So I think that the way Heavenly Keller was set up is actually more the norm for us now, having sort of a set-aside available for unexpected items. However, a little bit more unusual that we didn't set it up that way.
In the alternative way, in future emergency response declarations or whatever, did you go ahead and include any kind of contracting changes that we might anticipate kind of cover the situation? So when we come in, it should become maybe kind of part of that staff summary, just kind of include those two contractors, at least identify those contractors as existing and we would be amending at that point. I'm just trying to get a mechanism or kind of action in my mind.
I think something similar like on my item, I could have that on item 3 and 4 that maybe address these items 17 and 17.
If we think that is, ultimately this is how we're going to cover that.
Yeah.
This is,
Okay, so.
Yeah, and, the agenda item itself and then the backup, definitely makes reference to the fact that this was additional expenditures associated with the winter storm response. So, the detail is in the packet, to clarify what this is being used for.
It's there, it's just you really have to figure out an answer.
Very good.
Very good. Is any other questions?
I'm requesting that the board approve change order number 2, Technique Constructors, in the amount of $150,000.
I'll make a motion. Second. Second, any other discussion? Please call the motion.
Motion passes.
Okay, let's go to 7C.
Second members of the board, Fair Pollution Engineer. Here request approval of change order number 1 to White Rock Construction on $500,000. Julie covered most of the items, so I'll just let you know what's going on with the R. We should be done next week. I've spoken with the owner of White Rock Construction and stressed the importance of staying at this amount, but I really didn't want to come back to you folks for more. And we've been right there. He was at $407,000 through the end of last week. We've got some outstanding material invoices that'll come in. We're seeing about 55,000 a week out there, so we should come in just under the 500K. And that's, reflects the level of work that prepares us for summer thunderstorms, protects our ditches. We dug out some really big debris basins. We're clearing out, replacing culverts, upsizing some culverts. We did a half dozen yesterday. So we're making a lot of work to be ready for the next event. And then, getting our roads ready for access, restoring them from winter damage, either from erosion or some removal activities on gravel roads. And then, a big chunk of this also reflects the work that occurred during the harbor event. This is really a permanent improvement, but just clearing snow that ditches to help the water flow and prevent damage. So we should be in pretty good shape operationally going into the summer. We're flowing water through the on-farm to our ranch recipients, which is good. And, we should come in, I guess, around the reservoirs normally. The one item that wasn't mentioned, I'm surprised Paul didn't tout it, is we are meeting extensively with OES, Office of Emergency Services, and FEMA weekly for both for an August event, a December event, and a February-March event for cost recovery. Those items will potentially be covered 100% for activities during the first 60 days and 75% for both activities thereafter. So we're really working hard to get that 75% cost recovery, so we don't need to be putting in a quarter for each dollar of work performed out there. So I think that was the only thing I didn't mention, but we're working on that. So the work with White Rock should be done next week, and then my hard work begins. We're trying to put these things in 3 different buckets and get as much money back as we can. And we're also doing that with the and for the work there. The crews are done, and the equipment is
Yeah, I'll just reiterate, my preference, I don't speak for the whole board, I'll just speak for myself. My preference is to have these kind of authorizations be separate. And I can just think of, 2 years from now, we're doing a rate study and we're considering a higher or a different rate category for the people in the higher pressure zones. And we look back at the Tahoe tank project, and it costs this much money.
I don't think that would happen, because these will be, accounted for under the emergency account code, not under the Keller.
It'll be peeled out. So
It gets peeled out. It's just the contracting mechanism that basically sets all the standards for the work that they perform, so that we don't have to renegotiate them during the middle of an emergency.
And pricing, I mean, they're pre-negotiated and all that.
And all the rules under which they perform their public work,
Yeah. Okay, so as long as we don't have a forensic problem, that, we can, put more on top of the magic and keep this work part of it.
Well, mad.
I'm going to.
Board members, any other questions?
This year, as you're going through your, feeling all the debris and analysis, I guess I'm hoping you guys are taking notes and identifying areas for upsizing and culverts and other moves that adapt to these types of situations in the future. And obviously, it's $1 million to deal with the situation. So to whatever extent we can kind of, get items onto our capital improvement program that help alleviate future situations like this, I guess we'll always have to be done with some extent. Re-engineering tool. We have one application active for community mitigation funds for stabilizing about a square mile of the property. That will be used to bring flows to a lot of these facilities. We're pursuing another application to pipe sections of these ditches strategically so that they won't need to be cleaned out. We can just flow over them. So we are looking at that, and we're trying to figure out what else is out there. Like these debris basins really save a lot of money. So we may just proactively dig these out in the future where we're having problem areas. We're also looking at like equipment needs at DVR, like we have a backfill budgeted, and we're looking at we'd be better off putting that money toward an excavator to cut down these costs, because then when we do have these events, we're able to build that piece of equipment out on an hourly rate and recover it.
There's also stats and FEMA and California and everything else, and that's just, I can imagine, it's just challenge for staff to kind of handle requesting emergency recovery
For
funds.
the limited cost recovery is putting out a burden on us for the management projects.
Okay.
Other questions? Let's see, talking you trail off. You get so just for you, I'll make sure to drive it home. Okay, so, proposed action?
Requesting that the board approve change order number 1 to White Rock Construction Incorporated in the amount of $500,000.
Second.
When I trickle off, you don't move 1,000 after 500.
All right. X-rays and for the 7D aeration blower system. What's your name? Who's carrying?
That's on
Did you go to that? Somebody got more version.
You got shoulder.
I'm sorry. All right, standing committee minutes.
I have the type of license.
There's been no, we had an executive committee meeting just prior to this to discuss, attorney and general manager.
No part of that. Okay, and I have not other than the executive committee meeting. Next week is ARPA, Association of California Water Agencies in Monterey. The 8th through the 11th, I will be there. And then we have an Eldorado Water Agency meeting on the 17th. Let me go right into the board member reports. I did attend a fundraiser for Kevin Kiley on the 29th. It was at a home down in Granite Bay, and I did catch his ear for a little while and thank him for getting the earmark and there for the Pioneer Trail. And also asked him to pay attention always to some of our local policy and level issues and whatever's kind of gearing up toward FEMA and Forest Service policy issues related to some of our fires, fire prevention. And he was not aware at all of the Tamarack fire. And I said, my understanding was that the fire started, I think it was on Forest Service land, and they decided to wash it. And while they watched it, it took off and ended up burning up our property and just like everybody else's. So, and there needs to be some policy discussion with Forest Service, and I think McClintock had said he was going to push that. I don't know if he ever got it anywhere. So that's kind of fun idea. I'd like to get back to them. And then, if there are any issues that we have with FEMA that he could help at the federal level, I can promise that I would get back to them with sort of a summary of our ask on this thing. So, Shelby, if you want to go on.
Yeah, that's great, and we just working with him back in these two right now, a couple of items, so we can try to follow up.
I had the food for a couple of weeks and I've been extremely not that full.
I did not have the food in my life, but I
We're kind of wrong with it on the trigger. So moving on, I guess we eliminated staff and coming reports, correct? So he's trying to make it simple. Oh, here we go.
Can't get rid of me, Daddy. When you keep me off with talking to Kylie. So, wanted to provide a ledge update. It's been a very busy legislative session. So at the federal level, the week of April 17th, I traveled back to DC with our partners from Tahoe City PUD and North Tahoe PUD to meet with our federal delegation and agency staff. Our request was really focused on water for fire suppression infrastructure funding. We met with Congressman Mark Amadei from Nevada. He's one of our largest supporters on this issue. He's been pressuring the Forest Service to increase their allocation to the Water for Fire Suppression Partnership to reach that full $10 million appropriation that Congress has set. We met with California Senator Feinstein and Padilla staff, and it was great timing. After our meeting that night, they released the earmarks list, and our Pioneer Trail Waterline project was included on both of their lists. I'm really proud that of all those projects throughout the entire state of Nevada that were submitted, that we made the list. So very exciting. There's lots of things that need to happen for that money to come through, both the House and the Senate, to approve a budget that includes all the earmarks. But if all the stars align, we could receive up to $4.5 million, and that our delegation is aware of the priority of this issue. We met with California Congressman Kevin Kiley's staff for the first time, which was great. We thanked them for including us on the earmark list. They were very receptive to helping find opportunities to expand eligibility for funding for water for fire suppression infrastructure projects. It helped that the week before, Dave and John saw him down at El Dorado Water Agency's spring plenary. So building a great relationship there. Dave, I'm thrilled to hear that you met with him, and I can work on following that. We also met with lots of different agency staff, the House Natural Resource Committee, the House Committee on Agriculture, House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, as well as the Forest Service. Of note from those meetings, we met with Jeff Marcelay, who used to lead the LTBMU forest up here with the Forest Service, and he let us know that they think they have found additional funds to allocate towards the Water for Fire Suppression Partnership for this fiscal year. Currently, the Forest Service has appropriated $2.1 million. We don't know how much more is coming, but that was great news for the Forest Service. Well, in DC, we also met with the National Association of Special Districts. Sean Barclay, the general manager for TCPD, is very involved in that organization. They were making their rounds at the Tahoe, similar to us, and water for fire infrastructure was one of their top priorities, which was great. I got to see Nick Haven at the end of my trip, who was in town focused on transportation. I saw Julie Reagan from TRPA. She was meeting with Kylie to try to gain his support for reauthorizing the Lake Tahoe Restoration Act, as well as attending his birthday event with the Vice President. This was my first time going back to DC for work, and I was really impressed with how productive the trip was. I think it was really valuable to be there with the other California public utility districts, right? It wasn't just South Tahoe we were representing California Tahoe water issues. So it was great. And then I can't remember when David French and Eric Saperstein were out last. They're our lobbyists. They did a great job of having a packed schedule for us, and it was very obvious that they talk to these folks all the time because all of our delegation staff that we met with knew them, knew our issues, were prepared to hear from us. The next big federal event is the Tahoe Summit. I'm working with the Tahoe Interagency Executive Communication Team to prepare messaging and funding requests for the summit. It's likely to be hosted in early August, maybe at Sugar Pine Point. Still working out details, more info to come. At the state level, we continue to work with Senator Alvarado-Gill's staff on SB 470. This is a bill that we worked with Tahoe City and North Tahoe PD on to expand grant eligibility of Department of Water Resources Small Community Drought Relief Program to include water for fire suppression infrastructure projects. Essentially, when we go to water and ask for try to get in grant funding, they say this is a fire issue, and when we go to CAL FIRE, they say this is a water issue, and so our projects don't fit any grant funding requirements. The same thing happens at the federal level, right? We go to the EPA, they say go to FEMA, FEMA says go, we go round and round. So we're working on filling the hole in the donut. So the bill passed through the committee, and still needs to go to the floor to be passed. I'll be joining the California Tahoe Alliance tomorrow. We're going to take Senator Alvarado-Gill and her staff out skiing at Heavenly. I'll be providing an update on the importance of water infrastructure. I thought it was going to be a spring skiing day, but we fell through that. Yeah, sure. El Dorado Water Agency. Last week, we met with Ken Payne and Rebecca Dow of the El Dorado Water Agency to discuss their legislative priorities and see how we can partner. Also see how we can utilize extra ARPA funding to install fire hydrants in the county. They think that there will be ARPA funds left over from projects, maybe not this fiscal year, not this upcoming fiscal year, but we're going to continue working on their projects. I'll also be meeting their lobbyist, Mark Smith, at the ADD-HOC conference next week to continue to identify opportunities to collaborate on Tahoe specific issues. In 2 weeks, I'm heading down to staff to lobby with California Tahoe Alliance, California Special Districts Association, and Tahoe City and North Tahoe PD. We're still working on the agenda, but we're secured meetings with Assembly Member Megan Valley, Eduardo Garcia, and Alvarado-Gill. Oh, and J.D. Shimsky, who's the Deputy Director of Legislative Affairs for Department of Water Resources. So again, that's trying to really get into the nuts and bolts of expanding grant eligibility for water infrastructure. The trip is really focused on trying to build the Tahoe delegation and identify more funding opportunities for our projects. This spring, we're hoping to bring Kylie up to Tahoe to take him on a tour, as well as bringing other legislators up to get them familiar with Tahoe, our issues, have them fall in love, give us more money. Not legislatively, but just things going on in the community. The Chamber has invited us to speak at the State of the South Shore event, which is May 17th. And I'm going to be presenting there. And then Steve Caswell is hosting our Recycled Water Strategic Plan public and stakeholder advisory meeting May 23rd. I believe he's presenting to you an update at the next board meeting, so you'll hear more before the public meeting. Any questions?
I would just like to compliment your work moving this forward. I mean, as you put it, filling the hole in the donut, I think was something that we were, as a board, very, very supportive of, and seeing action on that take place is really exciting. And what it means for our community is even more exciting.
Yeah, so much of this work is kind of the long game, right? You're building relationships, you're identifying the issues, then you get into the nitty-gritty details of what things can be expanded on. And when we got that news about the earmarks, I know you're talking state level, but the earmarks, normally I don't jump for joy when I hear that a project has been approved, because it was perfect timing. We had just been lobbying all day. We were on the rooftop bars looking at the White House and the Washington Monument. The lobbyist called and said, "You need the list." I mean, you would have thought we all won this lottery. We were pretty excited. So important. Yeah. Yeah, more than that, over $4 million if it comes through that.
Yeah, it was a great job, sure.
I have a real quick question on, as we're bumping up to the debt ceiling, and is there any, I guess I'm just curious, just like, do we have any sense of like how that potentially might happen in terms of some funding that we might be depending upon, and I guess it would affect just about everybody.
Yeah, we don't have to do that.
No, I mean,
What's our exposure, I guess, in terms of federal funding that's coming our way?
FEMA funding is what we're, really chasing right now. And I hope that's not impacted by GSA for sure, but I'm assuming that's kind of separate. It usually affects future funding, so, a lot of the funding we're already have.
So we allocated,
Already allocated in some form. Hopefully it doesn't impact that, but who knows?
and then is, like, paying more debt.
Yeah, great work, Shelley. I really applaud you for the level of effort and the collaboration. I think going back with a group of folks and not just individual agencies, just my experience dealing with folks back there, they appreciate that a lot. Having coalitions, partnerships go a long way. So keep it up. That's great work.
Yeah, in the last year or two, John, we've been working really closely with specifically Tahoe City and with Tahoe PUD, so that we're sharing the weight, right? That they join our contract with our federal lobbyists, so it's a more equal amount of work that's being invested and money that's being invested in that. We hopped on board with their state lobbyists, obviously state lobbyists, as did North Tahoe PUD, which I think the collaboration is really key, not just for the delegation when they hear us, but internally at the staff level, it's not one person at South Tahoe PUD doing it all, it's someone at North Tahoe PUD, Tahoe City PUD, that we're sharing that workload, and that if I can make something and they can't, the message is covered and vice versa, which is great. Thank you.
Cover a lot more bases.
Right.
And, we used to kind of go alone in DC especially and kind of come back empty, so really been great progress. The last 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you. For the staffing update, grant specialist interviewed on Monday. Engineering inspector, 7 interviews on Monday as well, 3 internal and 2 external. 3 internal candidates, 2 of those participated in a cross-training program, so happy to see that. Sorry, there's 3 internal candidates and 4 external. But really a very, very strong candidate. So looking forward to that. Our new water resources manager starts a week from Monday. And a great turnout for water conservation specialists. I think we got at least 20 applications we're taking a look at. And also a really good turnout for seasonal firms, which we were a little bit worried about. So that's great news. We've hired over 10 so far, and they're really helping us make some great progress in the field already, including the city hydrant project. Our crew have already installed 4 just in a short season so far. And I think seasonal temps, I said this before, this is really a great conduit for them to lift the district and vice versa and be our own future potential workforce right here as positions become available. We're sorry many. Our current advertisements include CAD analyst, lab tech, and pump station operator. And then lastly, Yesenia, our grants coordinator, will be leading us. And maybe Paul, you can give us a little update on this status.
I prefer not to. Well, unfortunately, she couldn't pass an opportunity that she was provided back in Nevada through the Nevada Supreme Court system. So we've actually re-advertised that position just today, and it will be an active recruitment. In the interim, Lynn Nolan has agreed to come back and help us out for a while, which is very beneficial. Specific rules around that, though, because she's what's known as a retired PERS annuitant, and so there's specific steps we have to take. First of all, yes, the recruitment has to be active. The individual has to be appointed by the board. And due to the fact that they, have the specific skill set for that job, it has to be for a defined period of time, and they can only be appointed that position once. So hopefully we won't be going through this anytime soon again.
Thanks, Al. Moving on to TTC, I just want to let the board know that we're continuing to work closely with the TTC on issues and challenges related to the Tahoe Marrow at both the staff and executive level. I just talked to their executive director, Jason Vasquez, earlier this week, and really he's completely satisfied with the action, coordination, and communication between our agencies to address the flooding out there. And Chris Stanley and Julie have been working very well with their staff on previous and current actions, and also looking forward on that teacher assessment and planning efforts to create a really a more resilient window out there that's less vulnerable to flooding. So we're going to go with the PTC. Last item is the State Water Board, and this is in regards to Lucas Water Company and consolidations. It's actually at the March 16th board meeting. I spoke to the board about it. Paul and I, we had a meeting with Jen Wiggins, and she's been applying for state grants, and the state is now requiring her to look at potential consolidations with the districts, perhaps, and that we should expect to be contacted by the state. So we have been contacted by the state, and I've talked to someone there about consolidations, and I really just reflected the board's position on this matter, kind of relevant to what we're doing with the Tahoe Keys. That we're not actively seeking to consolidate water systems, but we're willing to entertain that concept towards a stronger community water system. And I think, you know, if they wanted us to, they directed us to help fund the issue, and then we follow a similar process that we did with the Keys, system analysis, condition assessment, that sort of thing. And the state does have significant interest in consolidations and funding behind it, I think, especially funding for disadvantaged communities. So I think this could really help in a potential Lucas consolidation effort. So really sad for the discussions with the state. I expect to hear back from them really no timeline for that. But it sounds like more to come. And in a report from me, if there's any questions or comments.
Just one quick, so the state has the ability to force Lucas to consolidate with them, so how's that process doing?
I think the answer is no, but what they can do is not provide grant funds.
Okay. So they just provide a lot of motivation.
Yeah. And there's been a lot of state funds that have been to Lucas over the years, so that, and the system's in, well, much better shape than it would have been otherwise. Any other questions?
Thank you. Okay, that's the future meetings and others in the agenda, and if something else, let's go into closed session.